if you're like me, you probably print directly onto PEI instead of something like glue stick on glass. And when you first started using PEI, you were probably thinking, hey, this stuff works pretty darn good. But over the course of time, you'll find that that first layer adhesion just ain't working as good as it used to. And that's because you need to clean the PEI surface periodically. Now, the standard solution to this is to use isopropyl alcohol, specifically 90+%. And the reason you want 90+% is because if you look at the active ingredient and inactive ingredients, you'll find that it's just alcohol and water, whereas anything less than 90% is often alcohol, water, and some glycol of sorts that just does not bode well for the PEI surface. Now, what I have discovered in terms of using rubbing alcohol is if you just put rubbing alcohol onto a napkin like this and then clean it off, that doesn't work very well because the rubbing alcohol is a solvent. It wants to dissolve the oils that get all over your build surface. Now, how do oils get onto your build surface? Your hands. Yeah. So when you're removing your prints from your build surface, you eventually touch the PEI, and the oils from your hands get onto the PEI, and that's what's causing the PEI some trouble sticking to your first layer, because there's a layer of oil in between your plastic and your PEI. Now, to make this rubbing alcohol actually work, what you want to do is take a bit of it, squirt a little puddle in the center while the build surface is at around 60 degrees Celsius. For whatever reason, the higher temperature makes rubbing alcohol dissolve whatever is on there much easier. Now, it is going to make the rubbing alcohol evaporate way faster, which is why we're making a small puddle. And the reason we have a small puddle instead of using this is because once we dissolve whatever is on the build surface, we need to absorb it and capture it. So having some extra rubbing alcohol for that oil to dissolve into is important. However, there is a far better solution that doesn't require a hot build plate to do that, because, word to the wise, if you put some rubbing alcohol onto a hot build surface and it evaporates real quick, you're not going to have a lot of oxygen for you to breathe. You're going to cough a little bit. I learned that one the hard way. Now, the stuff I'm about to show you is not something you're going to find at Walmart or something like that typically. This is reagent alcohol, 200 proof. So here's the thing. This stuff is insanely strong. 200 proof is essentially pure alcohol. Now, using this stuff directly on PEI is absolute overkill. So what I do is I take this and dilute it by about 10% with reverse osmosis deionized water, and use some nuclear grade deionization resin to get the TDS of the water, total dissolved solids, down to 0. And that makes perfectly clean water to mix with this almost damn near pure 200 proof, because the moment you open the cap on this, it's no longer 200 proof. It'll start absorbing some moisture from the air. But this stuff works insanely well. I mean, all I really have to do with this is, at just room temperature, put a little bit on there and just gently wipe, and I swear by this stuff, I have never had a better adhesion consistency than when using this stuff. And then just let it evaporate and you're good. It'll evaporate real quick. Now, I do want to address something. I know you might be tempted to use acetone. I'm sure people have peddled the idea of acetone working well, and here's the thing. I used to use acetone when I had some really hard problems getting things to stick at one point. And here's the thing. Acetone will work for a short amount of time, but acetone does things to PEI. It makes PEI brittle the more you use it. So, yes, you are cleaning the PEI, but you're also damaging the PEI when you use acetone. So, be very careful with what solution you use. Alcohol solutions work perfectly well as long as you use them in a way that makes them effective. Acetone, it's just not a good idea. Now, the last solution you could use is Dawn. Dawn dish soap is a surfactant, and it's a very good one at that. If it's good enough to remove oils from the animals in an oil spill off the coast of some sort of scenic area, well, then it's good enough to remove a little bit of hand oil that has gotten onto your build surface. Yeah, it's going to take a lot longer to do because you have to get it all mixed up and on the build surface, and then you got to wash it off real good and then dry it off. It's a lot more labor intensive and it's not nearly as quick, but it should in theory work if the main problem is in fact oils. So those are some solutions to a problem that I'm sure many of us have experienced. So hopefully you can find some way to do it with just regular 90+% isopropyl alcohol, or if you're lucky and you get some of this stuff, just dilute it by 10% with some distilled water or RODI water. Or if you don't have any of them, get some Dawn dish soap.